In this topic, we're going to have a look at what happens when the value of an item drops down over a period of time. And as it says here, that cars, machinery, computers, they actually, a lot of them lose value. Most of them lose value over time because of things like wear and tear and things becoming out of date and so on. And we call this whole process depreciation. Now, right from the outset, I want you to know that this is the reverse of interest. When interest is added on, the value goes up. With depreciation, a certain percentage is taken off. So let's have a look and see how this works. A car is a perfect example of something that really depreciates quite quickly. It says here, each year it depreciates by 20% of its value at the start of the year. And we want to have a look at, after 3 years, what's happened. It says calculate the value of after 3 years if it actually costs $35,000 to buy. So let's have a look at the process here for depreciation. So first of all, the car loses 20%. So we lose 20% every year. So we'll put here per annum. Now that's like interest, but it's being taken off. And also the amount therefore that it'll be worth is this. So we can say it will be worth, okay, now watch this, it'll be worth 100%, that was its original value, minus 20%. Okay, so it'll be worth 80% of its value at the start of the period, or at the start of the year. So that's what we're actually working on. So let's go through this process and see how it looks. So its value after 1 year will be equal to 80% of the original value, which is of $35,000. So if you get your calculators out and work that, if you times that, make that into a decimal, 0.8 times 35,000, get your calculators out, and the new value is going to be $28,000. So our new starting value needs to go down the next year. So the value after 2 years is going to be 80%, again, because we're losing 20% of not the original price, but the price at the end of the first year, $28,000. Once again, use your calculators here and you'll get an answer of 22,000. So this is the new value, $22,400. So at this rate, after 2 years, the car's dropped from being $35,000 to $22,000, which is reasonably realistic. What about 3 years? The value after 3 years is going to be 80% of $22,400. That's the amount, or the value was at the start of that year, $22,400. So after 3 years, the car is going to be worth $17,920. I'll just push the page up a little bit. So there we have our depreciation. Now, question B asked, find the amount the car has depreciated altogether. So we could say therefore that the amount of depreciation sort of like the reverse of interest. The amount of depreciation is what you started with, $35,000, take away what it's worth, 17,920. If you use your calculators and work with me, you'll find this car has gone down in value $17,080 in 3 years. So that's what we say. It's depreciated by that amount of money. All right, let's have a look at another question. This one says to calculate the value after 3 years of a new car that costs $35,000. This time it depreciates by 22%. But this time we're going to use a formula to do it. And the formula that we're going to use is V equals P1 minus R to the n. Now that should look familiar to you. Remember, the formula for compound interest was A equals P1 plus R, the interest rate, times n. And that one's 1 minus. Why? Well, that's because the value is going down. So we're going to use this formula to show that you can work out depreciation very, very quickly. So V is the depreciated value. P is going to be the original price that you paid, in this case $35,000. R is the rate of depreciation, not the interest rate, but the rate of depreciation. And N is the time period, the number of years. So let's have a look and see how this works. So for A, the question is, calculate its value after 3 years. So its value after 3 years is going to be what it started with, $35,000. Then it's 1 minus the interest rate is 22. Well, it's not interest, sorry, depreciation rate, 22%. So we divide it by 100 to make it into a decimal. And we're going to do this for 3 years. Now, I'd like you to get your calculators out and check that you get this answer. And I'll write it down, but if you need to pause the video, pause it. But the answer you should get out of your calculator is that the final value after 3 years, $16,609 to the nearest dollar. We might as well round it to the nearest dollar in this case. Dollar. Now the final question says, or part of the question, find the amount of depreciation. So the amount of depreciation is equal to what you started with, the value of the car that you paid, $35,000, and we're going to subtract from that its final value, which is $16,609, which tells me that the car has depreciated by $18,391 in 3 years. All right, so that's the concept of depreciation. One more example that will help you understand this concept is this one. The purchase price of a new car is $32,000. It depreciates by 15% of its value at the start of each year. This is a good question. How long will it take for the car to depreciate in value to $16,000? Well, we take the same formula. The value at the end of a time period, maybe 3 years, is equal to what you paid for the car, 1 minus the rate of interest, to the power of n, which is the number of years in this case. Let's substitute in everything that we know to do this question. We do know that the value is at the end of the time period is 16,000, but we don't really know how to work out n without rearranging it. So here's the best way. We're going to use what we call a guess and refine method. I'll write this up here. We're going to guess and refine. So let's try a guess. Let's say 3 years that it's going to take. We've got V equal to $32,000, 1 minus, now it's 15 over 100, to the power of n. So we can write this down as 32,000. Now 1 minus that gives us, if you check that with your calculator, 0.85 to the n. So the guess and refine method says we don't know what n is, so let's guess. Let's try 3 years. Let's say we estimate that it will take 3 years to do that. In this case, if we put 3 in as our value of n, so we'll put this up as 3, it's worth at the end 19,652, which tells us, because we want to see how long it's going to take to get to 16,000, we've still got more time. So let's try another year. Let's go n equal to 4. So V is equal to 32,000, 0.85 to the 4 this time. And if you get your calculators out and work it, you'll find that it's 16,704. Now we're not quite there, so we need to have it more than 4 years, and I would suspect that through this time period, by the end of 5 years, it would have devalued so to where we want it to go. So if we say the volume is equal to 32,000, not volume, sorry, the value, I was thinking about another unit we were doing, the value at the end of 5 years of 32,000 is 0.85 to the power of 5, so it's after 5 years. Your calculator should tell you that it will be worth 14,199. Now we know by this time it's devalued to 16,000, but how are we going to actually state the answer for this? It's not exactly after 5 years, and it's not at 4 years. It hasn't quite made it. So the answer is the answer to the question, how long will it take? The best answer would be that the car is worth $16,000 after approximately, and what will it be? After approximately 4 years. And that's your best answer. So when you've got something like that, the guess and refine method is the best.